This video is going to be about passing data or using information on one screen or one scene and using it on a different scene. So you can see I have a tab bar controller. In one scene I have a score that will be added to when I click the add button, and then when I open the next scene that score will show up. So a couple of things I'm going to do first. I can see over here this view controller is a generic view controller that is created when you create a new Xcode project. I'm just going to delete that controller because I want to create new ones for the two scenes that I have. So I'm just going to highlight that and delete it. And yes, I want to remove the reference. Okay, what I'm going to do now is create a folder to hold all of my view controllers. So here in this folder that's named Passing Data Between Scenes, that's the name of my project, I'm going to create a new group. And this new group is a new folder, and I'm going to have it store all of my view controllers. Okay, so for example, I have two scenes. I need a view controller for each scene so I can control what's happening with each of the components on the scene. So if I right click on this view controller group, I'm going to add a new file. I'm going to choose Cocoa Touch class because that's what holds all of these different scenes that I need. Notice that it says a subclass of UI view controller. That's what I would like. This is for my pink view controller, and the language is in Swift. Yes, I would like it stored in this view controllers folder or group, and so I create it. And then I'll do the same thing for my yellow view controller, Cocoa Touch class. I'm going to call this my yellow view controller, UI view controller in Swift. And yes, I would like it stored in that group called view controller. Okay, what I need to do now is connect these view controllers to my scene. So if I go back into my main storyboard, what I need to do is click on the bar up here at the top of my pink view controller, or my pink scene, and I'm going to then click here, and it's asking what class am I going to assign to this? In other words, what view controller? So if I just start typing pink view controller, that comes up as an automatic fill. I will do the same thing with my yellow view controller. Okay, and I realized before I started making this video, I forgot to make this the initial view controller, so I'll check that box right now. Okay, I'm just going to have this run in the background because it takes a while, but in the meantime, right now what I'm going to do, I'm going to just minimize this window. I don't need it right now. Now that I have the view controllers connected to these two scenes, I'm going to work on making a variable for my score that can be accessed on this scene and on this scene. So to do that, I'm going to create a new script, just a new Swift script where I can store that global variable called score, so I can use it on all of my scenes. Okay, great, that's up and running, wonderful. And that goes to my next scene. All right, so I'm gonna create a new script, and I'm going to create a new file for that just because it's good practice to keep things organized. And instead of a Cocoa Touch class, this is now just a Swift file. And this Swift file, I'm going to call this global because this is going to hold all of my quote-unquote global variables, or variables that can be contained in different places. Oh, I forgot to create a folder. I said I was making a folder. Let's make a new group. Let's call it scripts. And then I'll drag my global script into that folder. Okay, so in this global script, I'm going to create a struct. This struct is going to, I'm going to call this vars. And what this struct is going to do is it's going to allow me to create a variable that can be used on any of my scenes or in any of my view controllers. So I'm going to make this static meaning it can be used anywhere. This variable, I'm going to call it my score. And I'm just going to initialize my score to be 0 to start. Okay, this will come in handy here in a moment. I just wanted to create this variable so we could come back to it in a moment. So it's important to remember the name of your struct and the name of the variable you just created. Okay, let's go back to the pink view controller. We need to connect this view controller to the scene. So here I'm going to add a new window. I'm going to click on this. Oops. I'm going to click on this to add a new window. And in one of my windows, I want my storyboard to be visible. And in the other window, I have my pink view controller. Okay, so what I'm going to do then is connect the objects on my pink view controller to this view controller script. So this comes with this automatic message to you. We don't need that message. I have two things I need to connect. First of all, I need to connect my label, and then I need to connect my button. So I'm going to connect my label first. Control, click, drag it over to above the override function of SuperViewDidLoad and below the class name of pink view controller. This is an outlet, and I will call this my score label. It's a UI label, and then we connect. So that just created a variable for me to access my score label. Okay, now I'll do the same thing but for my button. Control, click. I'm going to drag my button below the view did load. This is my add button, and instead of any type, I'm going to say that this is a button type, and this is an action. Touch up inside just means we're clicking on it. So I will connect that as well. And this created a function for what's going to happen when the add button is clicked. So let's do that. Let's see what does happen when the add button is clicked. What I need to do is add one to my score. So I'm going to add one to my global score variable. And then I will update the text to show that. So remember, this name of the struct was called vars. And inside my vars, so then I'll put a point. Inside my vars, you can see the variable called score was the variable we created. So it's accessible here, even though we're in this function on this scene, because I made that a struct that makes this score available anywhere. So I just added one to my overall score. Now what I'm going to do is update my score label to indicate this. So I'm going to say score label dot text equals, and I'm going to say your score backslash parentheses vars dot score. So this adds one to the score, and then this updates my label to show that it's been updated. Let's run this to make sure that works. So if I add one, updating my label. Great. Okay, now let's go to the next view controller, because in the next view controller we need to show this score, and the fact that it, when we click over here, I'm going to say what was your final score when we were done. So I'm going to click over to this, and now in this part of my window, I want to get my yellow view controller. So if I go back to my files, I'm going to go into my view controllers. I'm going to now access the yellow view controller script. I'll get rid of this message. And here all I have is a label. So I'm going to make a connection between my label and my view controller script. So I'll click or command drag or control click, and I will also call this just score label. And it's a UI label. I will connect. So I'm going to do two things. First of all, I want to say when the screen loads, I want to make this score label text show what my final score was from the previous page. So I'm going to say when the view loads, I'm going to change my score label text to be this, your final score, and then I will put my variable in of vars.score. Okay, let's run that and make sure that works too. Give it a moment. So we add a bunch of points to this, and when we click here, it shows the final score was 9. Now we have an issue here, because if I keep adding and then go back to my second page, it only shows a score of 9 still, even though I updated my score to 15 by adding more. And that's because in here, this is only when the view loads for the first time. So I'm going to add another function. View will appear. Oops, I saw it. View will appear. So this is saying when the view shows up, like when we come back and we want to refresh the view, so when the view appears back on the screen again, we will update this to be the final score as well. So now, whether it loads for the first time or every time, it will update the score for us. So we'll do this one last check. Make sure this works as intended. So initially, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 shows a score of 5. If we go back, now we're at 10. It should show 10, and it does. Okay, that's all for this one.